This video is brought to you in association with Only Drones. My boy Only Drones lent me his Betafpv Meteor75 to do this review with and test flight, etc. Because what happened was last week I did a review of the Betafpv Femto 20 and almost every question is, should I buy the Femto 20 or should I buy the Meteor 75? And unfortunately I didn't have one to be able to answer those questions. So my boy Only Drone stepped up and gave me his. Now, if you follow me on Instagram, I did put a post up a couple of days ago saying that on the day I was test flying it, that I crashed it into the lake and destroyed it. Anybody who knows me knows that was actually a joke. It's fully safe. He's got it back. And now we can do the review. And we can do the review honestly and find out, should you buy this or should you buy the Femto 20 from Betafpv? Let's take a look. So, a brief look at the specs will tell us that this is a 75mm 1S Tinywhoop equipped with the latest DJI 04 Lite Unit, which will give us 4K recording stabilized at 60 frames per second at just 8 grams weight. That's phenomenal, let's be honest. There's a few questions that I've got to answer within this review though. One of those questions is, how low can you go on a 1S when that 04 Lite needs 5 volts? Find that out later on. Further spec is it uses 1102 22,000 kV motors. It uses Gemfan 45mm 3-blade propellers. Flight controller wise, we've got the Matrix 1S 3-in-1 HD FC. It's got an onboard serial ELRS 2.4 GHz receiver. Betafpv say the weight's about 37 grams and the flight time is up to 5.5 minutes. So the main things about what we're going to be testing today is how low you can push the voltage before the video browns out. And is that 5.5 minute flight time on a 1S with a digital FPV system realistic? Let's find out. So taking a closer look, or as we normally call it, checking the QC of this thing. This is going to be quite an easy one because the DJI 04 just plugs in, so there's no soldering there. Betafpv are using a flight controller where the motors just plug in, so again there's no soldering there. We can check the motors, they look fine. Everything looks fine, you know, it's all well connected, it's all well put together. It's exactly what you'd expect from Betafpv and DJI in collaboration with each other. There is no QC issues that we can see, and everything looks exactly how you would expect it to look. We've got a few close-up shots, take a nice close-up look at it, but ultimately there's no surprises, and this is exactly what you would come to expect from any decent manufacturer in 2025. So first of all, you're going to be extremely glad to see that we've got rid of that old pair of scales. I've finally got time to get some new ones. We're looking a bit classy here, and we're placing the Meteor down, and it's 37 grams, just as Betafpv say. So that's brilliant. Placing a 1S 550 lava battery down with it, and that gives us 52 grams. A little bit heavy for a 1S. But not massively heavy because we do have the slightly larger props. You can obviously get it a lot lower with 65mm props, but then obviously you don't have as much thrust and so forth. But 51 grams I think is not bad at all things considering with what you're actually getting. You're making a little bit of compromise on performance, but what you're getting with the picture quality I think is, yeah, I don't see that as an issue at all. Now the next test is going to be the noise test. We do a very, very quick one in the studio just to see how noisy it is. And just before we actually hit the noise meter, it peaks out at 68 decibels. Then we hit it and it falls over and yeah. Que sera, what can you do? But I don't, again, 68 decibels is fairly quiet. You're not really going to hear something like that massively outside. So yeah, there's your weight and there's your noise. Now, we can't unbox this because Only Drones has already unboxed it for us, but we can take a look at the box and see what the labelling on it says. And while I'm here on the desk, what I want to say to you is, if you do buy one of these, you're going to need a decent 1S charger, and there is nothing better than the V-Fly Whoopster 3. I'm going to give you a really quick demonstration of it now on the table. You also need a proper dial coming out on the 26th of February, free to download on all the 3D print hosting files and pages. I'll have more as we get closer to the release date. But the Whoop 3 from VFly allows you to charge. Obviously, you've got two different types of 1S batteries that can be charged in it. You only need a relatively high-powered USB to charge it. You don't actually need a LiPo or a special power supply or anything like that. And then you just pop the battery in the top, depending which style of 1S battery you've got. And you can see you've got a lovely clear display telling you how fast you're charging it, what your current input is. And once you put the battery in, it'll tell you how much charge is on that battery. So this will tell us, look, on number 1, we're at 4.28 volts. But if we hold that down, it's going to charge at 0.8 volts, up to 4.35 volts. And we can see now it's just bumping up the charge. It's gone to 4.3 volts already. If you've got a 1S drone, you need one of these chargers. I will leave a link in the description down below. I've been using this for over a year now, and it is absolutely phenomenal. And we'll just take a look around the Meteor75 before we go any further. We'll just pop the VFly back down on the desk. As you can see, it's palm sized. It fits in the palm of your hand. It is bigger. It does feel quite a bit bigger than a 65mm, even though obviously it's technically not. It's only 10mm bigger, but it does feel quite a bit bigger in the hand. That's not to say that it's too big or too wieldy or too heavy or anything like that. It's an ideal size for flying anywhere discreetly or anywhere indoors. It's a really great drone, and I think it looks really nice in these colours as well. I think it really sets it off. That 04 is a little bit exposed at the back. It could probably do with something just. So the next job once you receive one of these is to go into Betaflight and set up your arming switch to bind it. If you've got ELRS, just power it on 3 times, then go to bind in your radio, and it's done. Simple as that. You can set up a bind phrase. It's a little bit more involved. I will have a video coming out on the channel to help those new pilots that don't know how to do it, because ultimately a bind phrase makes your life way easier. But we can deal with that later on down the road. It's not a problem. So for now, just plug it in 3 times really quick. So plug, unplug, plug, unplug, plug, unplug. You'll then see it's flashing twice quickly. You can then just hit bind on your radio and you will be bound. Now, once you're bound, you then need to plug it in to the little adapter. Once you plugged it into the little adapter, plug the USB into the adapter and then open up Betaflight. Click connect and away you go. So I need to change my control map because my control map's different. So I'm just going to skip this part. Now skip that part because most of you won't need to do that. But we've checked now and all our controls are correct. So we can move into modes and we can check to make sure that our arming switch is where we want it. And then we've got angle, horizon and turtle mode all set up to different switches. Now I'm not going to change any of these because this isn't my drone. This is just a drone I'm borrowing, but I would personally change some of these settings. I'm not overly keen on how this is set up. What I am going to change, however, first of all, here's a PID Tune. So for anybody that needs a copy of the PID Tune, if you've upgraded it and you've not copied it, here it all is for you. So you just pause the video, write all those down, and here's what the filtering is set to. Again, just pause the video, write it all down. I'll take a screenshot of it, and then you can copy it over into your drone. Now, this is what the rates were when I received it. Not happy with that, so we're going to increase the rates massively because it just, especially for something that's on 1S, I'm not going to increase it to the rates where I would normally increase it to. Again, because it's not my drone, I'm just going to respect it a little bit and just not push it too hard. And I'm going to leave the Expo in purely because I'll forget to turn it off, and I don't want only drones to receive his drone back and just smash it into a wall. I would also change sensor sensitivity to 10 as well there personally. This is how the OSD is set up. So again, if you need to copy that, away you go. But we've got our arming switch set up and we're ready to go. If I can just pause the video there for 1 second to thank our amazing members in our community spotlight. We've got Silicam Photography, Club Alexandra, Boy Wonder FPV, Connor Clark, Christopher Conkright, Peter Puff FPV, Scottish Allen 420, Jamie Primnett, Reindeer, Han Solo, Doper FPV, Shaky 21 FPV, Mark Duplex, Harry M Photography, JR FPV, James III of Boston, Phil Anderson, not here, Oinks FPV, formerly Dizzy Dean FPV, Only Drones, and the fabled Barry Morgan FPV. It costs just $1.99 a month. You will get your name shouted out in every one of these videos. But if I've not earned that, that's fine. But please do hit that notification bell to make sure that you don't miss any of our new videos. And if you want to be featured for free, then all you need to do is leave an amazing comment and we'll pick 3 of the best comments on each video to read out in the next one. So the last one was the Air 65, and Robert Song said, is the pre-installed ELRS version 2 times or 3 times? And I can confirm it is indeed 3 times. Barry Morgan FPV said, awesome review, 100%. Love the macro shots, they were perfect. It's one of the favourite things I enjoy doing. I really do like having a really good close look up at these quads and see where our money goes and whether or not it is actually worth it or not. Because it's all well and good saying it flies amazing, but let's see just how well it's put together. So I really appreciate your comment there, Barry. Thank you. And Hale FPV RC says, love your reviews, bud. You're getting better every day. Can't wait to see the icon on 6S. Or was that the Nexa you're doing? Either way, it should be a ripper. I can confirm it is going to be the 2.5-inch icon from Avion RC that is going to receive the amazing 6S upgrade. I should have the remainder of the parts here today, hopefully, for it. So you should see that on the shorts very shortly. And I'll obviously revisit it once I've completed the review. If you want to get featured on this segment in the next video, then all you need to do is leave a comment on this video, make it really, really good, make it stand out, and I will pick 3 of them and I'll feature you and give you a shout out in the next video. Good luck, everybody. So we've got loads of flights. I think we did about 6 flights this day. I'm not going to show them all in their sort of fullness, and I'm not going to narrate over all 6 flights either, because you'd probably get bored with me saying, oh look, here's me going through another gap and here's me going over a tree. Nobody needs to hear me go on. What I will say with regards to flight performance is it's agile, it gets you out of trouble in the main. You can thread it through a gap and it gives you that confidence to thread it through those gaps. Again, you've got to remember this, what you're seeing on screen right now, this was not my drone. This was the first time I'd actually flown it. I'd not even flown it indoors. And overall, it's a really nice experience with the 04 as well. It's really enjoyable. And, you know, years ago, we could only have ever dreamed of having something as good as this. So it almost pains me to be a little bit critical about it, but there is going to be a couple of points that I do have an issue with, and you know, that is ultimately why you guys come here. You know that I'm not going to shill a product just for the sake of it, and that's why some manufacturers don't work with us, because I was a bit surprised there was a manufacturer that had sent out stuff to other reviewers but not to us, and I was a little bit surprised because I thought we had a really good relationship going. And it turns out that the product that they've sent out to people actually browns out at 3.7 volts. Now, I would instantly be all over that. The people they sent it to have said nothing about it. So that's why you guys come here. You guys come here for the honest to God's truth. So I'm going to let some of this flight footage play. I'm going to sort of cut some of the bits out and we'll just have some of the better highlights, and we'll keep it as low as we can. For anybody wondering how I've got a stick cam on my jumper, because there isn't a 3D print available, I'm actually using a neck strap, a bit like a dog collar, which goes around my neck and holds the GoPro. Now, I thought it'd be really, really heavy, but it's balanced in a way that you don't feel any weight at all. So if anybody's interested in that, I can let you know. I got that off Amazon, so there's no affiliate links or anything like that. I am here as part of the community to help you guys. You know, there is some confusion sometimes when I'm really positive about a product and people are like, oh, well, you're just doing that because you want affiliate sales. But I'm not. I don't want affiliate sales. And at the end of the day, I'm a part of the community before I'm a YouTuber, and I'm a YouTuber second. And that's just the way I see it, and that's just the way I'll always see it. I'm always here for you guys. I'll always respond to your DMs. I'll always respond to your comments. And if I can help you out with a product that I found, whether it helps me or not, then that's great, because, you know, being part of the community is what it's all about. Anyway, that's me waffling on far too much. Enjoy the flights. I'm going to shut the hell up. And once we've finished, I'm going to talk about these negative points that I am a little bit concerned about. And also we'll talk about how far you can push the Lipo. Enjoy. Now, as we get towards the end of the flight footage, I just wanted to add what I found when it comes to the flight times. I'm adding this on at the end because I'd forgot to add it in my summing up, so I'm going to have to stick it in here because I've got nowhere else on the timeline to stick it. On the batteries, the 550s, fully charged, I was getting around about 3.5 to 4 minutes before I'd pushed it a little bit too far. Betafpv do say you can get 5.5 minutes. The only thing I will say is that may be indoors, it may be in warmer countries because it was 0 degrees when I was doing this flight and it was a little bit windy. So I don't necessarily doubt that 5.5 minutes is possible, but that may be a case of if you're flying indoors or if you're flying in a really warm climate. I've got to be honest, the climate that I'm flying in and with the little bits of wind that I had, not me personally obviously, but that I had around where I was flying, ultimately 5.5 minutes just wasn't realistic, but it probably is going to be if you're flying in somewhere warm or indoors. So I think we can probably all agree for a 1S sort of 50, 40, 37 gram Tinywhoop, the performance that we're getting and the quality of the visuals that we're getting are something we could have only dreamt of years ago. So I think we can all agree this is actually a really positive thing. Now, in my summing up, there's a few things I need to raise. One of the biggest issues is, if you take a look at the battery cable, when you plug it in, what you need to do is you need to sort of push your battery back against it just to tighten that cable up, just to sort of pull it tight. Don't do it too hard, otherwise you'll pull it out of the flight controller. But if you just push the battery back a little bit to tighten that, take the slack essentially, that'll stop the lead hitting the props, and you can tuck it under the frame as well. Unfortunately, if you leave it loose, it will start to hit the props. I don't know why it's designed like that when none of the other Betafpv Tinywhoops are designed like that. Just the way it is. It's not a massive issue, but it's just something to be aware of. Now, the other point that I've been asked loads of questions about is how far can you push the battery before the 04 browns out? Now, I didn't use Only Drone's battery for this. I used one of my own for this, and I got down to reliably, I would say 2.9 volts you're okay at. Once you hit between 2.7 and 2.8 volts, it will die at that time at some point. But there's no reliabilities to say when that will be. So it may be at 2.7, it may be at 2.75, it may be at 2.81. My advice is push it to 2.9 all day long, but stop at 2.9 and come back and land. You can still do full throttle punches when you are sort of hitting that 2.9 bracket, but again, just be aware, you know, that's where your limit is going to sort of be. So you don't need to fly it like Miss Daisy in case you sort of get really low in the 3s or high in the 2s. You can thrash it about, not a problem, and it will not brown out. But once you start getting to the end of that pack and you start hitting sort of 3.1, 3.0, you need to haul ass home and land on 2.9 or above just before you've got any sort of problems. And I can assure Only Drones, it was not his batteries I used for that test. Your batteries all were stopped at 3.5, so please do not worry too much. So those are sort of the main points that people have been asking me. The next point to answer really is, should you buy it? And should you buy it sort of comes into another question that I've been asked, because ever since I did the review of the Femto, everyone's been asking, well, should I buy the Femto or should I buy the Meteor75? The answer actually isn't a simple one. The answer is probably, as I always say, it depends on what you're going to do with it. If you're a newbie to the hobby, then pick up the Meteor75. It's more forgiving, it's got less inertia, and you'll be better with it because you're not going to crash it anywhere near as hard as you would the Femto, because that's got essentially double the power because it's got 2S. It's not quite that, but you get what I mean. The thing with the Femto though is the 04's better protected in it. So it's a difficult one. But if you are a complete newbie, you're not going to be doing crazy things with it. I would advise pick up the Meteor. The other time I would say pick up the Meteor is if you're doing 90+% of your flights indoors, because it does struggle a little bit when you go outdoors if it's windy. Now, most of these flights were done in relatively calm conditions, but there was a couple of flights where the wind did sort of pick up a little bit, and it was a bit of a shaky flight. Now, obviously, Real Steady or Gyro Flow will fix that without any, or Rock Steady, sorry, will fix that without any problem at all. It's just something to bear in mind. Another point was, at times, I was having to sort of tilt 30 degrees to fight against the wind just to fly in a straight line, and it wasn't particularly windy. So, the Meteor is a great drone. My advice, though, is if you're going to be flying it outdoors more than about 10 or 20% of your time, I probably wouldn't go with it. It's great for indoors, it's great for newbies, it's so forgiving, you can thread it through the eye of the needle, it's really nice. But if you live in a place that is a little bit windy, or if you live in a place that you're going to be outdoors more often than not, my advice would be to pick up the Femto 20. So if you're flying outside more than you're flying inside, then pick up the Femto. If you're flying inside more, or you're a newbie, my advice to you would be to pick up the Meteor. There's lots of analog kits out there. My advice in 2025 is to go with the Meteor75 and start on digital, because then you can upgrade. Your upgrade path is a lot easier, especially with the goggles end nowadays being just 200 quid. I know it's a relatively high investment to make, but back in the olden days when we was recommending the kits to newbies that were analog, those goggles might have been £500 or £600 or $500 or $600. Things have really changed, and I really would advise newbies to start with the Meteor 75, and anybody who's going to be flying mainly indoors, again, start with the Meteor 75. It's a great quad. The 04 produces great footage. It's the 04 Lite, so it's not as wide angle as I'd like, but it is what it is. It's this or it's analog, and this absolutely destroys analog. If I was you, I'd buy one. I'll leave a link down in the description down below. It is an affiliate link. It won't cost you any extra to use it, but it will help Betafpv know that actually they might want to send some new products to me so I can share with you guys and be brutally honest as to whether or not you should buy them.